Jeff and I have been glued to the various places where you can find news of financial importance. And Jeff, NVIDIA beat bottom, top, guidance. Everything was better than what Wall Street was expecting. The stock is down. It feels familiar to me. It feels like normal. So what did you think about the NVIDIA information today and about the response to it on the street?
Yeah, I think the earnings are great. I don't understand, the response on the street. I mean, obviously it's got high expectations, like the weight of the market and tech, hinge upon it. There's not a hint from the company in terms of there being any demand concerns about their product. In fact, they said they're going to be running, demand ahead of supply for the foreseeable future for several quarters. I think they mentioned, and I heard the CNBC anchor say, well, that sounds like a warning to me. And I'm like, I don't know what planet you're on, but um, you usually when you have a product and you don't have competition and demand exceeds supply in perpetuity, and by the way, you're not calling out, something broken in your supply chain.
Right.
That means you've got a great product and everybody wants it. So that to me means pricing's gonna hold up, margins are gonna hold up. Blackwell's just getting started. It's still filling that area under the curve. It's going to improve on process times. It's going to improve in yield. And, these gross margins are only going to go higher from here. So I think it's good. I think they talked about, kind of the buckets of where this work is occurring in training and post training. And then I think in inference. And then you have Tesla here entering the chat of, honestly, I don't think there's any company that has their own inference solution installed in so many places and doing so many AI, call it AI level transactions or tokens. Um, and, with the 7 million Teslas on the road with Tesla's chip and Tesla's software running on their own chip, uh, it just shows you how many years ahead, Elon and Tesla were in forming that team 7, 8 years ago and kicking off that inference solution to do their own thing because it looks like a majority of the work in AI processing is going to happen, in terms of what Tesla developed. Everybody's been talking about training for the last 2 years because of this explosion with Nvidia, but the puck, in terms of skating where the puck is, it looks like it's going to be inference. And by the way, I mean, if you're Jensen, your test in your Nvidia, and you've got your buddy who you've worked with over the last 10 years, Elon, literally sitting in the White House advising them on everything tech, and you're trying to do this sovereign AI thing and have permissions and be able to work with all these other countries and go from private to go from government in terms of server capacity and AI enablement. I mean, it's not clear, how far this goes. I mean, trees don't necessarily grow to the sky, but I think they're going to be growing for a long period of time.
Yeah, so let me unwrap that because you ran over it quickly, and a lot of people may not realize that one of Jensen's biggest projects that he's talked about on the last couple of earnings calls has been getting more and more of these chips into actually sovereign governments as opposed into corporations, or getting these
Right.
governments at least maybe to use cloud services or other ways of taking advantage of AI, which they just can't do without some help from somebody like an NVIDIA
Right.
they're not going to have the resources, in these government offices to be able to do it. So with Elon ensconced elbow to elbow with the president every day, Jensen has to be feeling pretty good about having friends in high places.
Yeah. And Tesla shareholders should feel good. XAI shareholders should feel good. I mean, I think tech CEOs honestly should feel good because I think it's going to go beyond a political take, in the White House. You're going to have somebody who understands this business so well, right next to where, regulation and government spending occur. And I think this is going to be actually really good for tech. I know some people are kind of spooked by it or like, why is he appearing in all these calls and everything? But I I actually think it's going to work out quite well for everyone. Because if you're building something in tech, you want to be able to be as unencumbered as possible while being safe and practicing goodwill. But you want to be as unencumbered as possible because as those regulations peel off, that's less stuff you may have to put inside of your product, and yet the value is still there for consumers. And so your margins only get better if you have, so the regulation piece could be huge. But anyway, your original question was on NVIDIA earnings. They're great. The guidance is great. I think, there's guidance, there's whisper numbers, and everybody's like, is it above the whisper, below the whisper? This company is guiding billions of dollars ahead of where they previously guided. They were doing 18 or so billion in revenue a year ago, and now they're up at, 35, going to 37, probably go to 40. They could go to 40, in these, all it takes is a couple of really good, things that pull forward for them, and they could easily jump to 40 billion pretty quickly. Earnings beat, gross margins are in 73, 74%. So, you know, this is one of those things where you can't so much look at the P, they're growing into it. And you have to look at the growth of the company over the next year to see where it goes. And this is also one of those companies where the earnings print comes out and there's always some bizarre reaction. I've seen the stock go down 5 or 10% just within like 30 seconds. I'm trying to understand like what people can read and garner in 30 seconds and then go actually execute a trade in mass quantity. I've never understood that. And then so it's pretty volatile in the earnings print period. Then they get on the earnings call. They have a very good CFO who really understands the business. He can walk Wall Street through it in a way that they understand it. And of course, Jensen gets on and really shows them where the tech is and where it's going. So I think they're in a good spot. I think if you're investing in NVIDIA, you've got a good runway for the foreseeable future. It's not saying that, there's nothing that's without risk. This company's got Taiwan risk. This company's got, you name it. There's tariff risk. There's all kinds of risks that are upon this company. But I actually think their greatest risk is honestly on the inference side and what Tesla's doing, what Google's doing, what Microsoft may be doing. So that's where some of the greatest risk may be. But in terms of the training side, they've got demand as far as the eye can see.
So let me just riff off of what you just said a minute ago there, because I'm thinking back across my life, my entire life, which takes a lot of work because there's a lot of data there. But anyway, in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s,
a rich data set.
A rich data set. In the 40s, 50s, and 60s, basically government was ahead on tech. Government was installing IBM stuff before business was. That all changed in the 80s, 90s, and up till now. Now we have government paying way too much for systems that seem to never actually get online.
Yeah.
This be an opportunity for the government with the powerful people that they now have in and around Trump, starting with Elon Musk, but Vivek and with all these other people that are, Chamath and these other extremely talented people that in the computer area. This might be an opportunity to put some systems into the government that would maybe make a significant difference in the way that government processes and procedures work.
Yeah, can you imagine the Fed if they didn't have people they were sending into grocery stores with clipboards, and they actually had, real-time data feeds coming in? It'd be amazing. And now take that and extrapolate it across the government, and then take what does government even pay for their antiquated systems that are laggy and old and don't really do much, and how can you properly introduce AI into government to make it more efficient and do it in a safe way where it can't be compromised. So yeah, the opportunities are pretty large here. And I keep hearing, I see on X a lot and other places, just people are like, oh, I don't, how this DOGE thing is going to work. And there's no way it's going to work. Medicare and it's, Medicare and Social Security, it's $5 trillion. Like, you can't touch that. Of course you can touch it. Of course you can touch it, because there's people involved in administering that service and what can be automated and how efficient is that work actually happening. And then of course what do these what do they procure? What do they buy? What's the cost model on it? What's the margin on it? Do they understand it? Do they understand how to do sourcing contract? What percent of contracts are cost plus? What percent of contracts are single bid? Like there's all these things that real procurement professionals can go after. And it just it's interesting the way we select our cabinet leaders and people. We look at like all these different credentials, but man, if you can get somebody that's not only been in business but has been successful in business to go in and root out, waste and corrupt. And by the way, corruption, just raw corruption that's occurring. I just think the possibilities are endless. So yeah, you can touch all of these areas. You can touch defense. I'd have to imagine if you're a defense contractor and you've got the leader of SpaceX, inside of the government, and you're Boeing or you're Lockheed, whomever. I mean, they're going to be, they're going to be meeting a kind of a different set of principles and just a different approach to probably how to bid contracts and how to do things. So anyway, I think there's real pressure on those companies, and I think everything can be touched in the government. And I think back to your point of government leading in tech and how can we introduce AI? I don't know if this is going to be a point where government's leading in tech, but it's going to have tech leaders inside of it. I'm hearing that there's a lot of people that are excited to work with Elon and to work with other members to really, drive some transformation in government. At the same time, I think there's still going to be some of the stuff that's frustrated us for many years, but I think you are going to see some pockets of real change.
So then that brings me to the question that I've been asking for 2 weeks, and we saw this run up of $90 or $100, however you want to count it. We call it the Trump bump for Tesla specifically. I'm wondering whether we've gotten all of that there is to get, because when I did the analysis like the day after, and I was seeing it shooting up, and I start to analyze all the different ways that that Musk benefits from the relationship. So information that he would not otherwise have at his fingertips, individuals that he can now get on the Rolodex that he's met in person as a result of just walking around with the president for the last 2 weeks. The
Sure.
heads of state that are going to have a different view of how to talk to an Elon Musk, the opportunities that might come his way that may not have come his way before, opportunities that may be coming just because the Republicans are in power now, as opposed to the Democrats. I mean, I'm not sure that the street or the individuals who are investing in Tesla have really done that kind of an analysis to see where the benefits might be bigger than that $90.
Yeah, Dan Ives is probably the closest. He's been thinking of it in a more critical manner and he's been communicating it. But you're right. At a high level, fundamental things have happened. The lawfare overhang got stripped off immediately. I mean, you're seeing right now the FAA is approving from 5 to 25 Starship launches in a year. I mean, the lawfare is just getting peeled off left and right. Elon's getting his picks. And the head of the FCC is someone who's been fighting for his businesses and Starlink in the background and really calling out the lawfare. But it's lawfare coming off, and then it's this enablement on regulation and simplification and being on the inside that's pushing it up. So the lawfare takes the overhang off, and then Elon's involvement with all these entities pushes it up. And he was already there. He was already respected by world leaders before this. He was already walking. And that's part of the reason, by the way, I think that made it so obvious to the Trump administration. First off, this guy offers to come in and help campaign for you. He's very influential. People believe what he says. He's considered to be the greatest inventor and business, person of our time. And he's offered to campaign for you and endorse you. So you take the help, and he's effective at what he does. And he's, other world leaders believe he's effective and smart. So yeah, you bring him in, and now that just elevates the credibility of your political team. And you've won the presidency. You've got a mandate. You've won multiple the other branches of government. But I think so to your point, Randy, I think people may be missing a couple of other things. One is other CEOs are now going to, Musk went from, man, this guy could get arrested, or this guy can, be this or that, or ketamine or whatever. It went from this to like, my God, if I don't get Elon's ear in the next couple of days, like I want to do that next big deal with him. If I'm, Oracle, or if I'm Google, or if I'm whatever, I want to do that big deal with you. If maybe it's an FSD licensing part, like that whole thing has been the lawfare got stripped off, but also, you know, you may want to, if you're in corporate, you may want to do a business to business transaction with the most powerful person in business right now, connected to the most powerful government in the world. You may want to you may want to do that deal, and it's not explicitly connected to you. It's to pay for play, but
Oh,
that's how it works.
that's right.
So I think what other people may be missing, I think you called it out correctly, but they may also be missing the business to business element here of other CEOs wanting to work and get closer to Elon, and then other world leaders, quite frankly, and now are like, hey, I can talk to Elon and I've got Trump's ear at the same time too.
Right.
So I mean, his stature, it's not only lawfare coming off and then him working on regulation in the background. That's what is publicly said, but the reality is it's many, many times greater. It's going to even be hard to quantify.
I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to the Lex Friedman, Javier Milei interview yet. Did you have a chance to listen to it?
It's on my list. I
It's
haven't
on your
yet.
list. Okay. Well, it's 3 hours long or whatever, but or 2 hours. This is only 2 hours. I've listened to most of it now, and Javier says, that about Elon, he talks about, the breadth of his knowledge, that this is the thing that impressed that Javier didn't know until he actually had a chance to visit with him on several occasions, and he says that, there are conversations around demographics, there are conversations around world affairs, there are conversations around Israel. He was just surprised. Of course, when I wrote the book, and
Yeah.
you've read all the books, all my books at least. No, I'm kidding. But
Yeah.
you find out that he read the encyclopedia when he's 9 years old. I've known people that have started to read the encyclopedia. He read the encyclopedia, so he has this breadth of knowledge. And Javier, he adds to it. He says, and he's also charming. And it's
Mhm.
like, it's really a complete package, and not to be the fanboy at too high of a level,
Yeah.
but that's what we're looking at. That is the reality, is he not only has the brain power to be able to do the inventive things, he has the go power to be able to shoot for Mars, not even the moon, and then to actually execute on those amazing ideas. But then, in addition, he is able to handle himself in these settings.
Yeah.
One other article today said that they thought maybe the thing about Elon and Trump being such buds is that maybe they're the only other person that they've ever been able to talk to at this level. Get
Yeah,
understood.
it's possible. Yeah, I think that is possible. You almost see this you almost see this relationship that is kind of on a different level. They may have connected, on a different level. It's hard to say when we're all on the outside
Right.
looking in, but when I hear Trump's children speak of Elon, like, Don Jr. just took a flight with him, I guess, back from UFC, and it was like he was just talking about the flight nonstop and the ability to talk with him about space and talk with all these different things. And so it's not just the president; it's the president's family who he values greatly in their opinion. And of course, it's everybody kind of around him and his new cabinet. So, yeah, I'm sure there's going to be issues
Of
back
course.
and forth, but it sounds like, the principal himself and then his family are really, th- I think there's a pretty special relationship there. So I don't know if people know how to quantify this.
Yeah, I know.
And two, the other thing is the business results are actually there. Like that Q3 that they printed really helped bolster credibility for him. And again, like what was that one couple weeks in time in October where they had the Wii Robot event,
Yeah.
he landed the booster into the chopsticks, and then they blew out earnings. Like the credibility is act like he's actually printing stuff. It's not just all talk. And I look at the other CEOs in auto, and you look at what happened. I guess the president of Volkswagen in the U.S. has just left resigned.
Yes.
Hyundai even changed out their CEO recently. And then you have Ford and GM. They're kind of like they're interesting. They're putting up mixed earnings, single digit EPS multiples, and they're kind of just operating a business versus like the thing that was put in front of them to take their business to the next level was, EV and autonomy.
Yeah.
Well, Ford completely pulled out of autonomy. And what they're telling you is that their first generation of EVs, they're just going to like try to converge and not even, make as many until they can get to their next. So they just totally swing and miss. So they just haven't demonstrated they can get to that next level. And here, you know, Tesla's kind of perfected making an EV profitably, and now they're just on to the next thing, which is autonomy and how can I sell my software inside of my vehicles and quite frankly to others.
And I'm not 100% sure that I would go along with you with saying that they're running a business because I saw you posting earlier
Yeah.
today that Ford is got their lots filling up.
Yeah.
They laid off people. They're closing plants. I mean, it's to me. I'm looking around the world, and with a couple of exceptions, like the South Koreans at Hyundai and Kia, and of course some of the Chinese.
Chinese.
I don't see anybody that is moving in a positive direction.
And not to get overly political or in the, but this is the same thing I think they're talking about with pharma and ads on fintech and business networks and TV, which is how are you going to get the news media to be critical of these drugs and drug companies if their number one funding source are these drug companies. And then the same thing, you wouldn't know that there's anything going on in auto right now that's borderline catastrophic unless you had somebody like us piecing all these articles together and putting out, videos. It's not being picked up by Fox Business or CNBC or the other major fintech that these legacy auto companies are laying off thousands of people, closing dozens of plants. All their plants are idling under 50% utilization. You don't hear this in a consolidated manner, but this is in the US, an industry that has 3 million people that work in it, and it is under serious duress at this point. But you're not hearing people talk about it. And I posted this a lot. I mean, GM, Ford, Stellantis, they spend billions of dollars a year in ad spend.
Right. Right. Yes. Yes. So, all right. On the flip side of that, you posted also. I had a way of setting this up, but I'm going to pass that, and I'm going to just say your post. Your post was Tesla valuation spreadsheets will spontaneously overheat. You didn't say catch fire, I noticed, because that would be not a good thing to say.
Yeah.
And anyway,
Thermal runaway.
spontaneously overheat since Tesla is officially in the business of selling full end-to-end AI inference software AI computers to non-Tesla vehicles. So I think what we're talking about here, of course, is FSD and or. So my question is, how would you? We know that there's conversations apparently going on with SAIC and with Geely. I kind of have Geely in first place in my mind that they might be the first to do it because of the brands that they represent right now. I mean, that they actually
Yeah.
own or that they're an owner in. So I see Geely of those two. I think Geely would maybe be in the lead. But how would you see this playing out? Do you see this playing out as some comprehensive package that includes Dojo, includes the operating system, includes FSD, or do you see just here's your FSD license, go do what you can with it? I mean, how is this going to work?
Yeah. I think Tesla is an amazing company, but in terms of like how this would be organized, I think it would roll out in phases. But I think the idea is to get, and I've seen this done in the past too. There's companies like Qualcomm that have this ability to produce a reference design and they have a team. So they have teams that develop product, and then they have teams that once the product is developed, work with a myriad of companies to get the reference design, you know, uh, kind of integrated into those partner companies. So I think it would happen in phases. I think the idea would be is if you have the inference side and then you have the training side. And Tesla, you know, is unmistakably installing training capacity faster than anyone. And there's nobody in auto that's got a train cluster the size of Tesla, and there's nobody in auto that has 7 million vehicles with
Right.
inference capability that they have. So I think it would happen in phases where they would help people get their cars set up, get them situated, cameras, computers, and just get the cars ready to send up data. And then from there, kind of teach them to fish. Like, here's your reference design. Here's how you integrate it into the car. Let them do the work. Maybe Tesla certifies it with them in some way, shape, or form, and then they're off and they're buying a license. So every time, I think that they purchased the hardware package from Tesla, and then every time they purchased software from Tesla, be it on some sort of recurring revenue basis, they'll pay Tesla a license fee. And then, then these companies will charge their customers for a self-driving package. So I think that's the way it would work. And I think it could expand, into training and into other services beyond that. I think that's possible, and I just don't know how to value it. And but quite frankly, there's two schools of thought in valuing Tesla right now. I would say a lot of the analysts aren't really touching robotaxi as much, or they're not touching the bot. And then you have and then they're really just focused on how many cars and how much energy is deployed, and maybe looking at some of these other revenue lines. And then you have the very few analysts that are doing the bot, like, they're doing the bot analysis, they're doing the robotaxi analysis, and then they're allowing you to put some sort of probability on its execution, which I think is fair. To give bot and robotaxi zero probability of success because you, like, sitting in your office wherever, you haven't seen one working in production, is, I don't even know what the equivalent is. It's like, I don't know what the equivalent of that absurdity is, but that's what that's what I hear from people, and they're always going to be chasing is what's going to happen. And you can look at some of the leading indicators now, and you can see where Tesla has the lead, and it looks like the gap is only growing. Like, I don't know of another developer of self-driving solutions that can be sold to companies to put into their vehicles. I don't even know of anybody. There's Mobileye and there's things that are being, but I just, it looks like that gap is growing. It's not shrinking. So I don't know. We'll see. I hear and see all these names and Pony AI and Baidu and this and that. But when you ask the complete set of questions around how many vehicles are out there, how many miles, what's the time to break even, and what's the time to profitability for these companies, then you get people kind of playing with that don't even know what's going on. They're just counting, like, they're just reading like articles from Reuters or whatever, and they're not actually sitting down and doing the critical thinking. You have to have a product that people want, and you have to have a cost model and business case that can scale. And I haven't seen that combination come together
Yeah.
yet
Yeah.
for anybody.
Yeah. And you have a lot of these companies, a whole bunch of these companies that are trying to create their own system, their own approach to doing it. And it just, I don't know. Maybe I'm the one that's too ivory towerized on this and have an incomplete view. But it would just seem to me that if you have anybody in your staffing that is being honest with you, they have to say that if Elon Musk said this is the hardest thing that a human has ever done, harder than catching that rocket on 𝐤𝐸𝐴𝑍𝑖LA, is to get a complete
Yeah.
automated system, that I would be worried that my tech team may not ever be able to do that. And if I have something I can license and have it in 2 years, I'd at least be in conversations. It kind of baffles my mind. You've been in those C-suites. What do you, I think I've even asked you a question like this before, but I'm still baffled. What do you think's going
Yeah,
on?
I just, in my opinion, I do think it's going to break free, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. I do think something is going to break open because when you are in those meetings and conversations, one of the things you look at is what is your current burn rate of what you're developing, and what's the probability of its success, and what is its time to value analysis. Like, where does this actually, like, how many years are we going to be dumping money into this? And even when it's in production, how much more money are we going to be dumping into network infrastructure costs and maintenance and then expanding globally. And what does that whole business case really look like? And so companies have that on one side of the ledger. Then the other side of the ledger is, okay, what else is out there from a competition perspective? What's my probability of success? And what do I think their probability of success is? And as I've told people, a lot of these discussions, every one of these companies have Teslas. Every one of them are getting the latest updates. They're out there, they're on the road, they're testing, they're trying to understand it, they're tearing down the vehicles, they're trying to get as much information as possible. And all things are going to point back to 100 watts of power, from a power consumption perspective. So on a power consumption perspective, it's superior. From a cost perspective, on the edge machine, on the actual car, the computer, that whole system is going to be the cheapest. The performance, that's what will get tricky for them because they have a very small number of units, and I think that's tricking a lot of people on X right now is they're looking at these FSD tractors, and there's some really, analysts that are smarter that are, they're looking at these FSD tractors and they're using that as their kind of their guidance.
Mhm.
And I can tell you from from being someone who's prototype products in small volume and then seen them and been a chief quality officer where I have to see the fleet size data of how our products are operating in the field and what kind of information are they returning. I will tell you the fleet data that's in hundreds of thousands and millions of units is very different, and the rate of change is very different, and the data set, the confidence in the data sets are very different when you're looking at something in small volumes and small frequency versus large volume and large frequency over larger pools of areas. And I just don't think people actually know how to look at the data. And I've been very clear with people. But that aside, that's what makes a market, and people can choose to do that if they want. I don't think it's the right thing to do. I'm listening to Tesla. Does it mean I'm naive and I believe everything that every company tells me? No. But when it comes to the data sets and looking at data like this, they have the best data set, they have the best data, and there's no reason, they've got to prove it to regulators, they've got to prove it, to get it out there. So, it's going to come to a head. But anyway, we went into a number of different areas there.
That's good. No, that's all good. So the other area right now, I have avoided it. I've ignored it. I've tried to run away from it. I've claimed that I'm too old to possibly ever understand it. That was, of course, joking. But well, I'm old, but I'm not too old yet. I don't think
Not
anyone.
that old.
It's called Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And so this morning on X, I finally agreed to read the book. So I'm going to read the book. I certainly understand money. I certainly understand, the philosophies of money. So there's a whole bunch of this that I do understand. I even wrote a paper, I think when I was in junior college, I wrote a paper on the potential for changing from the gold standard to the energy standard, and using energy as the underlying value of all of our currency. But now we have a very different situation. We are approaching Bitcoin being worth $100,000 per coin. We have CERN giving us instructions on how this is more than just a currency. It is also a security device. We have some small company called MicroStrategy that has all of a sudden become, one of the top 100 companies in the world, like in a week. And so, among other questions I would have, maybe my first question, and then you can go as far as you want to with the entire subject matter. I was saying today that I've never ever shorted anything in my life, but I'm tempted to short MicroStrategy.
Yeah. There's people talking about that. I'd be careful. Obviously, things can stay irrational longer than um, people can stay liquid. It's actually a pretty good statement. The funny thing for me in Bitcoin is that the whole pizza story. I think it was 14 years ago. There was a program where they had 10,000 Bitcoins. 10,000 Bitcoins.
I
Think
know.
about what that would be worth today. And he used it to buy two pizzas because back then it was, they were worth, pennies.
That's the
And anyway, so what would those two pizzas be worth now? The way I'm looking at it is sometimes it is difficult to understand. And that's, I'm not giving out investment advice, but there could be prudent ways to take very small portions of your portfolio, for some of these, more riskier bets in your mind. But I think people should understand it. Maybe you holding up the Bitcoin book, maybe that may signal the top, a near-term top for now. The fact that you're reading that. Um, we'll see. What I'd like to look at is like, okay, where is production? I like looking at things that like we can get our arms around, like production capacity and mining Bitcoin. So that's the thing I've been looking at and studying the miners a lot and doing some work there. And I think that's where there could be some interesting value because it involves capex, it involves production rates, and these coins. I mean, this is $100,000 Bitcoin. It has to come from somewhere. So that's the area I'm kind of looking at.
Okay, all right. And so, but as far as the aspect of it becoming a real currency, people have talked about, the reality that it is not something that you can still, that you would go in and use to buy a pizza today. So it doesn't have
Right.
any practical day in and day out value yet. So right now it is an asset that's being traded. It has been called a asset of last resort or a new gold, someplace to go to hide when things are when Israel is being attacked or attacking. How are you seeing it in that regard? Uh, I'll just start with I'm still seeing it as I don't have a clue because to me it could all fall apart tomorrow. Somebody could decide that it's
You know, people are always trying to correlate Bitcoin with something. It seems to be moving with risk assets, but you also have the biggest, government in the world openly saying that they're going to support it. They may even have a White House formal position on Bitcoin in management. They may even, obviously invest and have some sort of reserve of Bitcoin. So you've got you're going from what have today, which is highly regulated, don't touch, if anything, disturb it. And now you're going into something that's going to be, reduced regulations and be more welcoming to it. So I think that has provided this big push up from, call it 70,000 to where we are today. But yeah, it's going to be volatile. It's going to move around, but there's a lot of people calling for some pretty lofty targets. I think people should do their own research on it, read a book like you're reading and do that before you do anything. Don't get caught up. I mean, it's at all-time highs here. Just, be careful of FOMO, but, do your own research.
yeah. So to a certain extent, I think
Be
what
like Randy.
yeah, I think to a certain extent, what I'm going to do on the channel is I'm going to assume that probably only less than 1% of even the investing class has done any serious analysis or serious reading or serious amount of research into the entire thing. I'm going to assume that so that I'm just one of that other 99+% that is kind of on the edge, kind of watching it from the gallery. And I'm going to go through my own process now, and I'm going to make it part of the show. And as I learn and as I get smarter and well, smarter might be another issue. As I learn things, share and maybe Jeff, sometimes you'll be able to shed light on some of the things that I'm talking about as we go along. Because I think it's time maybe that the general public needs to, when I say general public, the general investing public probably needs to get smarter on it. They probably need to get smarter on Tesla, even sooner because Tesla hasn't broken out yet like Bitcoin has. So when the
Yeah, I think the move over the last month in Tesla has been great. Let it, it's going to consolidate, let it gather steam to the next level. But I think there's a lot of forward catalysts, whether it's licensing deals, whether it's, in advancements in FSD, whether it's getting these newer vehicles on the road. I mean, I don't know if people realize what the development costs are for a new vehicle, what the capital costs are for a new vehicle, and the fact that Tesla is extending this 3Y capex. I don't think people understand the inherent power of that for the economics of the new vehicle, but also the economics for 3 and Y. And actually, 3 and Ys are going to be cheaper once these new vehicles go into production. So I think there's a lot of great forward catalysts for the company. I think people are going to wake up and realize here pretty soon that when you buy a Tesla, it's got all this forward value. It's just going to continue to improve with software. And you're going to have this free access at various times for it to drive itself. And you can decide if you want to subscribe to it or not. I'm to the point now where I've seen the change over the last year where I don't get into my default getting into my car now is to set FSD and let it drive me to the destination. My exception is me doing my own driving. It feels weird.
Yeah, yeah, there you
It
go.
used to be the exact opposite a year ago.
Right, right. I can understand that process. All right, Jeff, I'm going to, of course, do the numbers without you because, I mean, you don't. Anyway, I'm going to let you go until next Wednesday, and I'll keep everybody else on if you want to hear what happened today and what is going to happen tomorrow. Thanks, Jeff, as always.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming on.
Take care. Bye.
Well, okay. So, what kind of a day was it today? Well, it was an unusual day, slightly unusual in so many different ways. Tesla, for absolutely no reason, was down $3.97 in the regular trading hours. And let me just do the after hours on Tesla right now. It's actually up 19 cents. It had gone down almost kind of like Nvidia, and then has come back up to where it's slightly in the green in the after hours. You've got the Dow was up 139, reversing yesterday's down day. You got the NASDAQ was down 21, partially reversing the up NASDAQ yesterday. And you got the S&P up 13 cents, 13 cents, 13.13, which is, flat, about as flat as you can get. You have the Magnificent Seven all over the place with Meta up for Apple up a few cents, Google and Amazon and Microsoft and Nvidia all down. And Nvidia, then let's see what's happened in the after hours, still down in the after hours, 272 after being down $1.12 today. Now, you think $2.72. Well, yeah, but that's almost 2%. So it was down almost 1% during the regular trading and down 2% now after beating across the board. So, like I say, a kind of a weird day. Cathie Woods also split, some up, some down. So it's kind of all over the place today. No real trending, nothing you could really sink your teeth into. I think the PCE is tomorrow, but nobody's even talking about it because all that anybody could talk about was Nvidia today. And then it comes out and surprises us. Now, there's always the sell on the news thing, but man, I certainly would have expected it to be off this much after what was really a good result, including good guidance, a guidance above what was expected. All right, let's go ahead. We'll go and take a look at bonds, which, they were, not a great day. Continuation of the trend that we've been seeing, which is that they're up and up and up in terms. The yields are up. For some reason, I am getting a completely messed up. Here we go. So we ended up at 4.406 on the 10-year. We ended up at 4.3 on the 2-year. And yeah, it's all messed up here for some reason. Anyway, so in general, kind of the same trend, kind of where we've been on the bonds today. And we're still a few minutes away from the bonds giving us tomorrow's look or the pre-market look. So then we've got oil right now showing unchanged in the pre-market. It's a 68.87. So, it's been kind of rattling around in that area for a while now. Brent at 72.81. Natural gas, though, streaking up today all the way to $3.20. This in the pre-market only up 0.13, but really natural gas is on a streak. No good reason that I've seen recently other than Europe, starting to buy from us. Gold up $3.10 in the pre-market to 2,654. Way to go to get back to those all-time highs. Silver almost 31, and copper at $4.15. So also a strong number for copper, although down 0.12 in the pre-market. Dollar down a little against the yen, up a little against the euro. Kind of, seems like that's the normal thing, is to be up against one and down against the other. Bitcoin up 1621 at 94,565. Let's go ahead and take a quick look to see if that is the record right now. Is it sitting at the top? Whoops, I hit the wrong thing. How come? Oh, there we go. No, we have a little bit to go to get to the record, which is at 90, what? 94.5. Yeah. Huh. That's pretty weird. Maybe. Well, okay. Well, how come I can't read things today? 94.9. Here we go. 94.9 is the all-time high. Let's call it 95, and we're sitting at 94.5. Okay, so we got that all figured out. Let's go on to the equities. Equities for tomorrow. We're looking at the pre-market is flat. So the Dow 12 are 0.03%. The S&P down 350 are 0.06. And NASDAQ is the only one that's moving in any amount at all, which is 2550 or 0.13. So not really very significant across the board there on those movements. All right, so there you have it. We've got Brian White coming up at 7:45 California time. We'll be going around the world and looking at what's happening at each of the different factories all around the world, the things that are important, not the things that are not important. And we will also have tomorrow be a normal day, as far as I know, CERN Basher. And at night, we will have Bradford Ferguson. Always some of the most interesting stuff that goes on during the week is on Thursday. So come back and check us out tomorrow. So like and subscribe, hit notify, all that stuff. I will put a card up for the, what will I put up? Last night. Yes, last night. That was a really good conversation with Nicholas Gibbs. I will put that one up for you to check out if you'd like, if you want to spend a little more time. But Nick Gibbs, always comes in with stuff that pretty much is a different take because of his specific knowledge and also because he's younger than most of us. All right, that's all I've got for that. By the way, you know what I would like to add? Besides that, you should buy some of these amazing Cybertruck bottle openers before you forget, before Christmas gets too close and you don't have time. The other thing I think I'd like to bring up would be that you should follow me on X. Are you on X and not following me? Is there any chance that's happening? We're having a lot of fun on X now. I think I finally figured out how to play. It took me a while, but all of a sudden I'm getting, 100,000, 150,000, what do you call it? Views a day on X. So I think I finally figured out how to play on that particular platform. So join me there if you'd like to get in the conversations. There's a lot. We're talking about all kinds of stuff there, and it is a lot of fun. All right, that's all I got for you right now. It's been great talking to you.